Okay, guys, hi. Everyone's back to the recording stations. We had a little bit of a break.
I hope you missed us.
So, well, how do we want to do this?
What do you mean?
Like, how do we record an episode? It's been a while. I kind of forgot.
You are thinking about it too much. You should stop overthinking.
Stop overthinking? How can I do that?
Oh, you are in luck, my friend, because there is this book with the exact same title, and
Oh my god.
we can all go read it, and then we can come back and record our episode.
We should do that right now.
Right now.
Okay.
Love it. So,
Okay.
did everybody read the book? Do you all know how you can not overthink about it anymore?
Unfortunately.
Indeed, we have read the book.
Yeah. I mean, if you call it a book, I
Mhm.
wouldn't call it a book.
What would you call it?
A summary of a summary of a summary of a poor Wikipedia page about overthinking with no editor's involvement.
Elif, can you please elaborate your scalding hot take?
I mean, it was basically a horse poo pile of overthinking,
Okay.
like
Okay.
topical buzzwords collided into around 200 pages, supposedly sold more than 400,000 copies, and translated into different languages, including German. So I don't know who is buying this. I am one of them, but
Doing buying is techniques.
I mean, we have bought it in
Yeah.
order to read, but like,
but it was such a disappointment. It was such a disappointment and a waste of time. These are my kind of first initial thoughts about the book. Do not read it. It's repetitive, redundant, bad writing. Like really, really bad writing. I don't know, elementary school level bad writing.
as a person who is stranger to this genre, like I don't read a lot of self-help books. You saying it is like repetitive and uninspired and elementary school level. Like, how common is this in the genre? Like,
Let me read you the first sentence of the book, which usually where you need to grab it needs to be a hook. This is going to take you into the realm of not overthinking. And chapter 1, overthinking isn't about overthinking. Great title from the beginning.
Ooh.
And the
Mhm.
first sentence of the book. Imagine a young man, James. I mean, what the fetch? Like, it's horrible.
What the
It's-
James?
See, my problem is different. I think that's a fine intro.
Sorry.
The problem
No.
is this never gets it's a fine intro in terms of like it's the most basic thing you could do, right? Like you're just leading with example and then like poking that example to give lessons to or perhaps tell not what to do. But like the thing is it is dropped instantly. Like that's kind of an amazing thing about this book is like that's the most basic thing you could do as a self-help book, and the writer never does that. Like it reads like he knows these books start like that, but he doesn't know maybe why, so he never follows up.
Just kind of quickly tell you, like, I just want to, in order to give you my point, like, stronger. After how James is stressful and one thing leads to another in his brain, it wasn't really actually about overthinking. It was actually overthinking itself. not the thing that he was overthinking about, which was, I don't know, getting late to somewhere, whatever. And then that leads to manifesting into large, horrible thought patterns. And, he goes on for 4 paragraphs like that, and 2 dots. Phew! It's hard to see how all of this torment and mental anguish started with nothing more than James noticing he had a weird looking mole in on his shoulder. Like, is this how you
Overthinking?
feel? Really? Such a linker word? Phew. Like, I mean, it's horrible. And the book just continues like that. And I hate James. I mean, I don't care about James at all.
I mean, James stops existing after that chapter. So that's least of your problems.
You are wrong. James comes back in like maybe 50 pages or so. James make one more appearance. I think the sentence was like, "Do you remember the James from the first chapter? He was overthinking."
Well,
and then
my thing is that if you're writing a surface level basic self-help book, the easiest and the most obvious thing you would do is have that example, that story of a character like woven into the book, and with every chapter you come back to it.
But the thing is, James is not even an actual person.
That's not a problem.
He's just a caricature of an overthinking stereotype person. Oh, he
Yeah, but
looked
like-
at his mole, and that led to him thinking about killing himself.
No,
Whoa.
I agree with Binali. I also like later in the book, he's like, maybe there is something bad happening in the workplace, or maybe your car has all of these could have been happening to James. It would have been kind of funny because all of these things are happening to the same person. But I agree. Like, we could have had more James in this book. Like, not enough James. Is my first critic. To
You
this
know
book.
what it feels like? It feels like the writer wrote this book and sent it to their editor, and the editor said, "You know what it's lacking? It needs a person." Then he wrote it in the first chapter. Then he put it in one other place. Then he was like done with it.
I know exactly what it sounds like. There's a comic. I am gonna post it to the show notes. Let me find it. By the way, totally unrelated. We bought a robot vacuum cleaner the other day.
What did you name it?
It comes with its own name. It's Dustin.
Well, you can anyways.
No, but we really like Dustin. We kept
Dustin
it.
is a good name.
Yeah, it's a good name for a vacuum cleaner.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's
yeah. No, but yeah, that's the
so
thing.
for my non-reading audience, it is basically there is this physics problem in the first panel, and then they are saying this problem is boring. We need to make it more. It goes a steel wall has water on one side, and there are other physics problem things, and they say this problem should be more fun. And they say a Superman with the properties of a steel wall has water on one side, and then it's the exact same problem.
So I just want to say something, and I think this sentence I'm gonna say is gonna explain a lot of things for the rest of this episode. I've looked into this writer a little bit, and only substantial thing I could find about him, which we should note that this book has 0 resources and bibliography in it, which is this is a non-fiction
I am gonna
self-help
come back
book.
to that later.
But okay,
Yeah.
so here's the burning answer you guys were seeking. This person has a bachelor's degree in business and then a master's in behavioral psychology. So the reason this book reads like someone just looked at their psychology textbook and said, how can I turn this into a pamphlet and make money out of it? It's probably because that was more or less the like process that went into it. Because, like, again, like I said, there's no story, there's no engaging factor that grabs at the reader. It's just one after another in the most monotone way possible, listing out you techniques, listing out you terms, listing out you just like a list of things is what this book is. Not actually a self-help book, I fear.
I am gonna wound you up. It reads less like a book, a cohesive book that has a start, finish, middle points, and like a whole thing. It more reads like a string of blog posts copy pasted after each other.
Yes,
Hmm.
definitely.
Like because the chapters have very little cohesion between them. Like as we are having fun in spite of the book, as we were having fun in spite of the book before. If all of these were happening to James, this would read more like a complete book. But instead, it is like he found. I mean, maybe he wrote all of them. I don't know. I can't. I will, but later. Maybe he wrote all of this, but I don't think he wrote it at one sitting, like at one string of writing. Like I don't think this book has a draft that has all the chapters in it and then they are filled. I think they are just gathered
This
from
book-
different places and put together.
This,
Like a Frankenstein of a book.
this book is the draft.
Yeah, it felt like an outline.
It felt like an outline that was filled by different people.
Mhm.
But maybe it's the same person with large time in between. I don't know. Like because it's while I read this, I am completely convinced that the person writing, for example, chapter 7, has no idea what is happening in chapter 3.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
no connection between them.
I think it does because the language itself reads like it's from one person. It's just there was no thought put into how chapters connect to themselves. Even though it tries to pretend there is, because every chapter tries to open with we learned this, now we're gonna learn this, but like there is no connecting tissue between chapters in reality, so they all feel detached, like chapters of a textbook.
Even textbooks have cohesion sometimes.
So we read different textbooks in the mathematics and engineering and science textbooks that I read. It is usually that unless you fully internalize chapter 3, you are done in chapter 4. Like you can't even read the first paragraph without it destroying you because you don't know about the previous chapter. But yeah, and another thing is I don't know. Like I said, I haven't read many self-help books. Is this plagiarism? Like he writes all these things and not a citation anywhere in sight.
Yeah.
And obviously these things, I mean, this book came out in like 2020, 2021 or something, right?
2021.
21, yes.
I am fairly confident most of these ideas were already out and about at that time. And he cites to none of the original sources.
I'm gonna one up you. You say it might be plagiarism. I would say there is not enough material in this book for it to be plagiarism. It is incredibly superficial, everything in it. And none of it is like original, none of it is groundbreaking. Like I am just a bit like confused about target audience of this, because a lot of things in this book are things I assume most people who would like want to read a book on this would already know.
I mean, yeah, I agree with you, but it is also true that almost all of these books say the exact same thing. So I'm not sure if reading one book that says all of this content will stop you from reading another one.
Not even reading though. Like even as like these are like, I mean, grounding techniques, apart from the amazing 5 4 3 2 1, most of the
More
things
on that
like
later.
about like grounding techniques, time management, these are things you like pick up from environment, because like they're like either common sense knowledge or general culture knowledge that you see around, you see circulate, right? So
Mhm.
like I am just confused about like who is this teaching these to. And I mean, I think even with some of them it takes advantage of that, this things being common knowledge more or less, because like he does very little to actually delve into them or explain them. He just gives you a surface level definition and banks on you already having
Hmm.
that knowledge from elsewhere sometimes.
But the main problem of the people who overthinks is they can't really apply those techniques in their lives. I mean, we are kinda all overthink, aren't we? At
I
some
mean,
point. I mean, we couldn't start the episode.
yeah. It has been like 20 minutes or something, and we still haven't started the episode. Obviously, we are overthinkers. Yeah.
So yeah, that's we are kind of overthink, and we can't apply some of the techniques in our lives or solve overthinking problem uh, with the techniques that we have already know before reading this book. But I think the main problem of the book is it just the first premise that overthinking is caused by anxiety. And let's talk about anxiety.
Yeah.
And the book doesn't even talk about overthinking in the first 1 or 2 chapters at all.
What was the quote I mentioned? The quote I mentioned before we started recording. Stress is a fact of life, but overthinking is optional.
Lol.
I mean, oh yeah, is it you? Like I just found another quote. Anxiety is often found with other disorders, both mental, like depression, and physical, like irritable bowel syndrome.
That's so
I mean,
stupid. Like, because how can you cluster all different medical conditions and just say like,
I
yes,
oh,
mean,
they're
these
all
these conditions these
it act.
conditions are conditions that intersect.
yeah,
That like that much is like the thing is a lot of the things in this book like are not lies, right? They are not made up. Like this guy is not trying to sell you made up psychological stuff,
yeah.
right? The problem is they are very surface level, superficial versions of actual psychological terms or techniques, etc. Which is my problem with it, because like when you pick up this book, there are two possibilities. Either you already know about these things or have some knowledge about these things, which means this book has so little information because it barely touches on any of them, that it is not useful to you. Or you're a person who actually does not know about these things. And then the problem is the way he presents them are so like unappealing and so basic, so shallow. You're not going to get any benefit from this book, from these techniques. And then because this was your first impression into them, you're going to think less of these techniques that were listed in the book. Or you're going to have a bad history because of this book on techniques that are actually useful if used properly by people who can utilize them.
Yeah. So what you're essentially saying is, if you believed in the usefulness of all the techniques in this book, but like from external sources, and you had a friend whom you thought these techniques would have helped, you wouldn't try to introduce these techniques by suggesting this book. That's what you're
Yeah.
saying, right?
Yes.
Because this book isn't doing a good job of explaining what these concepts are
Exactly.
Absolutely
Yeah.
not.
necessarily.
I mean,
And I find that a bit like
forget
these.
about Kanban technique with this book. So, I
What do you mean?
it's not
Kanban
even
is a great technique that is not properly explained in this book.
I mean, what did you get? If you don't know anything about Kanban, for example, what would you get out of this book or time blocking? And
You would feel dismissive about it because it is explained so poorly, like John Dennis said.
I mean, we don't know about this because
Well, yeah, at some points, like I was, as like you mentioned, when I came to these methods, some of them, like I was like pinpointing a few videos that explained much better, like the one you mentioned, like time blocking, like it said like record your week for a week and such. I was like, I have seen so many videos about this, like they explained it better.
and also like the main part of overthinking, actually you kind of overthink about overthinking and you try to find some solutions before reading this book. So you might kind of know about those stuff, but the main problem is you won't be able to do that because you have a hard time to adapt those kind of habits into your life, and you can't really stop overthinking.
I mean, that's the other part of it, like because like these techniques are techniques that are usually recommended through like psychiatrists, through therapists, through like actual professional help, because those individuals who are like more experts in their field can see their patients uh, and see the people who are asking them what would they be able to do them and how would they do that, right?
And they will guide them too. Like when the person fails, one method didn't work for them, they can pinpoint which part was struggling for the individual who is trying to implement these techniques into their lives. And without that kind of like a support, it's really hard to understand why a certain technique didn't work for you. I mean, not all of them are going to work anyway, but
Yeah.
without that understanding, then you feel more lost because you feel like I tried everything and it's still not working. Am I a lost cause? But no, not really.
Yeah.
And at that point, the book offers that maybe you are it's all in your head. Maybe like undermine the situation, and it's all in your mind. You should stop it, kind of thing. Maybe it's there if there is
Also,
no
Don't overthink
such a
it.
problem at all. But let's think about that. Like, it's kind of devalues.
also, I remember at one point, like the book was like saying, if I remember correctly, if you have problems that you can't solve by not overthinking, maybe you should see a professional. Like
Maybe. Thank you.
upon trying all the tricks, all the excellent tricks in this book, if you are still a loser, you can get professional help.
also, that was in the first chapter.
Yeah, maybe James should seek professional
Actually,
help.
in the,
In the first
second
paragraph.
which is hilarious, I highlighted it. Maybe what he really needs is some therapy. But what kind? That's that's what he says about James. That's
Yes.
so funny.
I think it was
I mean, James
near
should not
that.
decide that. His therapist maybe should decide what kind of a
But
therapy
I
he
mean,
needs.
this is a complete digression, but isn't there a conflict of interest if you go to one type of therapist while you need the other type of therapist? The one you go to, obviously getting your money, they wouldn't be like, oh, you need the other kind. You should give your money to that other person.
No, they do. I have personally experienced that, and I got rejected by therapists telling like, hey, like I don't know, I'm more focusing on psychoanalysis, but you need CB, what was it, cognitive
Mhm.
behavior therapy,
Cognitive
and
behavior
like that will
therapy.
work better for your condition. So find a specialist in that. Here's a recommendation from me that can be also in your, I don't know, health coverage, like health insurance coverage. That does happen because
Okay, then
they
that's
don't
good
want
to know.
to they don't want to waste their
I
own
mean,
time too. Like, you know.
well, it's an ethics thing, right?
Yes, I was talking with my friend who's a therapist, and she mentioned like they refer danışan, I wanna say, but what was it?
I think client is the
Client.
like you say client when you don't want to say patient because the person isn't sick necessarily.
But they won't. In Turkish, it's more like it's all about money. That's why we don't call it. They call it danışan.
How about counselee?
Counselee.
Okay, whatever. I was talking with my friend who's a therapist, and she mentioned they would refer counselees to other therapists they know because they may help better with their knowledge.
That's a good thing. That's very positive. Very good to know about. Like, I want to ask all of you a question. I think this is a sort of meta question, but bear with me. When you hear the word overthinking, how would you describe overthinking? Like without ignoring the definition of the book given in this book. What would you say overthinking, and what would you say appropriate amount of thinking? Like how would that go for you, Izal?
Skip me. I was thinking.
Very
I don't
overthinking.
yet.
Elif, how would you define overthinking?
I think overthinking is when the amount of thinking starts to affect your daily life in a negative way. Like it actually starts to affect your personal relationship, your work, your any amount of I think that's when it starts to become overthinking. And I personally use it more relaxed way in a way. Like I don't really use it in that term. Like sometimes, oh, I just overthink. I just overthought. I use it sometimes that way too. But if I were to this person is an overthinker, then I would say small things definitely affect them more, and it's harder for them to differentiate um, the factual things that are happening versus the feelings that they're having and how that interloop with each other.
So in your definition, I see that there are several implicit claims you are making. One is that you are claiming there's an appropriate amount of thinking for every subject, so that you can then define the over to be the amount more than that.
No,
Yeah.
no,
And also
no,
again,
no. That's not correct. What I was trying to say was
please explain.
if that individual life, like daily life, starts to get affected negatively, so that can change depending on the individual. Like there is no certain amount, but for that specific individual, when it goes that threshold and starts to affect them negatively and impact their daily routines in a negative way, to the point, let's say, they cannot even decide a certain thing, or they start to lose relationships, or really affecting their life in a negative way, that's when it's overthinking for me.
There's this song me and Binali likes, Why Do You Love Me from Garbage. Would you that is the type of Thank you, Izal.
Driving me crazy.
That's the type of overthinking you are referring to as a relationship ruining, life negative altering. Like
yeah.
in the song she says, it isn't a spoiler because it's a 3-minute song. In the song she says,
Let's give a spoiler on a song.
Yes, that's what I said. I mean, yeah. She says, eventually, upon pondering why she is loved by the person, she eventually decides that it is because the person actually fancies a friend of hers, which is obviously questionable. Let's call it questionable. But she seems to have overthunk herself into this position. So that's the type of behavior you would call overthinking.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Mr. Binali, how about you? How would you define overthinking?
That's kind of where I am too. I think it is when it is affecting your other decisions. It's spilling over to your other thought processes, so that a thought is just taking space in the place where you have to like attend to other things, and then that is scrambling inside your head. I think that's when you're stepping into overthinking.
So what you are essentially saying is, unlike Elif, if I am correct, if I, for example, start thinking about everything, like what am I gonna put into this food? What am I gonna like? It eventually drains your brain capacity, so you cannot focus resources on more important decisions.
Not necessarily even more important, just other decisions at all.
Like you can't go out with your friends because you can't pick a dress, type of thing.
Yeah, like it's kind of the thing where like you are bringing your brain to a state of paralysis because you have so much to focus on because you keep overthinking on every single matter, or even
too many open tabs.
Too many open
computer
tabs.
Go slower.
Yeah.
Like we understand. I mean, I personally understand that this definition is not exactly the same with Elif. You are both thinking about overthinking, creating, impairing your life decisions, but I think Elif is in a more serial way, while you're in a more parallel way. Like Elif's impairment, Elif's definition's impairment, is more derived from overthinking about the thing itself, while yours comes from overthinking about other things instead of the thing itself.
Yeah, but both can happen. Like,
by the way, in my view, both are valid.
It's just like when it's
Enes.
Mine will be kind of, I think it's the misuse of a resource of thinking. I mean, when it's thinking more for the amount that is required in a way. I mean, if you want to solve an issue, for if you need to solve a problem, and if you think more than needed to resolve the issue, you actually blocking the capacity of resolving the issue by overthinking, because you're extending the time and you are misusing the resource, which is time, which is more important, and it kind of blocks the capacity of you to solve the issue.
So actually, you spoke very briefly, and your definition is quite robust on its own. So I'm not gonna rephrase it and ask back, is this what you are saying? What you said is fairly on point, I think.
I overthought about it.
Good job. But I mean,
I think overthinking is not necessarily
no, you haven't,
bad.
because you came up with an answer.
Yeah.
In your definition, you shouldn't be able to come up with an answer by overthinking.
I mean, I don't think that overthinking is actually a bad thing. I think many people kinda can make use of it, because I think an overthinker is a person who kinda is a great observer as well. Because if your brain has a capacity to overthink, and if you get in the age like 20s or 30s with overthinking habits, and you couldn't have solved it, and you are aware of the problem, actually you might be doing good with the overthinking. Maybe you are profiting out of it as well. But with all of the nice things, it also had a bad side that might help disrupt you sometimes, and that's the part we need to reduce. I don't think that overthinking is generally a bad thing, because many people kind of make use of overthinking. Like if you had a bad scenario, for example, if you have a problem, that a conflict that you need to solve, and if you can overthink about it and solve the issue from the multiple direction. I mean, you can just come up with the different scenarios. How could be the alternative? What could be the worst scenario in that problem? And maybe you could prevent that with overthinking. But the thing is, understand when to stop overthinking. I guess it's the key part. If you have that control, overthinking will not be a problem at all.
So, Isel, do you want to give it another go, or do you want to say anything, or I'm going to start saying things?
You say a thing, I will say other things.
Okay, let's So I have a different concept of overthinking than all of you. I mean, maybe it's not necessarily conflicting, like I am not disagreeing with any of you. But in my mind, the overthinking, as it's a problem, like the type of problem that you would maybe associate with overthinking, is less about thinking too much and more about thinking with insufficient data. So what I am going at is, imagine James. You know,
no.
the guy.
If you really
James, let's imagine James wants to cook a dinner for himself. And he is lying in his bed thinking, I want to cook a dinner. If James knows with extreme precision what's in the refrigerator, he can just say, I am going to put lemon, I am going to put pasta, I am going to put cheese, I am going to put cream, I am going to make lemon pasta.
Mm-hmm.
But now let's imagine Jim only knows that there is pasta, but isn't sure about whether lemon exists or not in the fridge. Then James can start thinking like, I want to taste something citrusy, but what if lemon isn't there? But maybe there is, instead of lemon, there are some oranges and I can maybe put oranges, or maybe pepper. Do I have pepper? I can maybe put pepper, like green pepper, not the type not the black pepper. Although that would be nice too with cream pasta, but that's irrelevant. So if James knew with extreme precision what's in the fridge, and what type of food he wants to make. I mean, James obviously knows that he wants an acidic pasta, but he doesn't know if an acid exists in the fridge, so the overthinking occurs. I think that's more representative of the problem. If you are trying to reach the conclusions without data, then you would need to consider every possible thing in your fridge and whether they are acidic enough or not.
I think
Oh, go on, Enes.
yeah, I think you're looking from a more of a kind of from the things perspective. But to make people, I kind of get it, your perspective, and I want to improve it in a way that people more maybe can understand it more. Because from my perspective of overthinking, I wouldn't think about the things in the fridge, but what would other people will think about the things. For example, if I have some problem with, what should I cook? For example, what if my guest doesn't like orange? Should I use lemon or lime? Oh, I'm not sure about with the acidity. Maybe they would like something spicy, I would think. And from your perspective, I wouldn't know what people will think about the acidity or spiciness. Oh, new word.
Yeah, exactly. Like if you
spiciness of the food, I won't know their perspective on the pasta. So that's the part I won't know. So with the less information that I know, I overthink about it.
Well, I think.
By the way, I am not before Binali. Let me quickly say this. I am not saying the problem of overthinking can be solved by acquiring the data. What I am saying is, brain filling up the lack of data is what we consider overthinking. Like brain,
I think
considering alternatives for the lack of data is the overthinking process. Is my claim, Binali.
I think what you said is like a type of overthinking. I don't think it I don't think it like encompasses all overthinking. Like sometimes you're overthinking a past breakup, and if you had data to like support what would happen in your life if you didn't break up with that person, would not fix your overthinking of the moment or explain.
Like I said, I am not suggesting a fix. I am trying to explain the process in which overthinking occurs.
I don't think that process like applies to every instance of overthinking. I agree that it's a type of overthinking.
Okay.
I think we are overthinking.
That's fine. That's the suggestion of the book too.
And I don't think I don't think overthinking is a bad thing.
No, but what I'm getting at is I sort of agree around Binali. We all have different notions on what overthinking is and what overthinking looks like. And like Enes said, we all have some answers to problems created by overthinking because of our past lives.
Or coping mechanisms.
So what the book says is, unlike what we have done, the book doesn't bother defining what overthinking is and why that's a problem. Book just says
no.
these things about James, but does not elaborate on them. The book just says, if you are thinking about something that happens to you, a bit too much without reaching, like if you lose your focus while working on a problem that you think you have, then you are stressed, living anxiety, and you can solve stress anxiety with the following chapters. Like, it doesn't try to understand how overthinking operates. In fact, this book is barely about overthinking. That's kind of my that's kind of where I'm getting at.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have made all this discussion, and this discussion, I believe, would have been a more interesting book. That would be that the chapter would have been suitable to.
I mean,
Well, I have a TikTok video that's more useful than this.
well, the insidious thing is, I think it's called this and not like stop anxiety, because I'm assuming it was like more SEO friendly, or maybe there were too many self-help books coming out at the time that had anxiety in their titles, so it had to stand out.
I mean, there's a second
like,
even.
I don't know.
Mhm.
I mean, this is speculative, of course, but I obviously do not think very highly of this book or the writer, so I feel free to speculate.
I think
sorry.
Stop Overthinking is an appropriate title to this book, not because it isn't talking. I mean, it is talking more about anxiety and stress management than overthinking it itself, but the suggestions wouldn't work. If this book says stop anxiety, stop being anxious, then this book is trash.
No, that's the thing. I have an anxiety disorder. This book would not help me. This book does not help me. Because if I was just like, I already know the things in this book. If I was able to just say, oh, I should just do this and fix myself, I'm doing finger quotes, then I would do it. But I cannot. I have a disorder. It doesn't work that way for me. So, like, I genuinely find this book offensive on some level.
I mean, the book isn't trying to cure your anxiety, though. The book is claiming to cure overthinking, not anxiety. And I think that's the reason, because it can't cure anxiety.
Yeah, but the book is just trying to jump over the anxiety as if it doesn't exist. And like, I cannot just jump over the anxiety like it doesn't exist. That is not, like, maybe it works for some people. It does not work for me.
I don't think.
So, like, I really find the concept of taking all these techniques and terms and like filling this entire superficial book with psychological terms just so it looks more legit to sell to people really insidious.
It's a scam.
Mm-hmm.
It's a scam.
Allegedly, we do not want to be sued.
I mean,
we cannot overthink legal fees.
For all we know, this guy can be very earnest about this book. Like, he can be very, like, maybe these things actually worked for him, by the way. I am not entirely dismissing it.
Yeah, he's so earnest about it. He wrote 10 more books about the topic.
20 book series. And the latest issue of the 20 book series is maybe overthinking is okay after all. So, like, draw whatever conclusion you want from this fact. But
I think. Go.
What I want to say is, like I said, maybe the guy actually does all of these things and all of them work for him. We don't know, because in my honest opinion, most self-help books, I'm sorry if this is your favorite genre, and I'm not even going to say bad thing, but I'm still sorry. Life can be so much more. But the principal problem with these books is they are targeting people whose problems are really in their head. I am not saying that is all the anxious people. What I'm saying is, if you are a person who is living a perfect life, like you have amazing life, if you are Benedict Bridgerton,
if you are more specific, Switzerland,
then I think this book can really help you. Or like, if you are Collins Bridgerton, I think this book can really help you. If you are one of the more problematic Bridgertons, like Anthony, I don't think this book will help you a lot, because
I don't think anything can help Anthony.
I am neither saying that. I am neither undermining the struggles of people with like anxiety in this example, but like mental
Mhm.
issues in general. I am not reducing the problems faced by people who do not have these ailments, who are not struggling with these issues. Both of them have valid experiences. But this book, I agree with Binali, cannot help a person who needs a therapist for help.
Yeah, I like if I may quote one-sided friend of the podcast, here is Bomber Guy.
Yeah.
The worst thing you could do to an idea is to explain it poorly. And this book is the pinnacle of that.
I completely feel your anger about this book not being helpful to a person who is actually struggling with problems described in this book. But I believe this book more targets a hypochondriac than an actual person with problems. Like if you think you have a problem, but there isn't any like pathological reason, but it's more like if it's actually in your head, this book can help you. If it's more than that, I don't think
It's
this
the
book can
premise
help
of the
you.
books already.
And I think, Mr. Biner, you are angry because in your case, you are trying to apply it to everybody who thinks they have this problem. But the book doesn't, I think. The book only targets people who, I don't want to say don't need therapy. I think everybody can benefit therapy, but
It's for the people who don't overthink, but who thinks they're overthinking.
Yeah.
yes, the people, yes, exactly. This book is for people who think they're overthinking, not the people who are actually overthinking. Like, you know how in high school you drink 2 beers in a row and think you're an alcoholic, but you really aren't? That's the type of people this book targets, I think.
But it's still bad written.
Yeah,
Like, I'm sure you can find much better books, but it's really bad written, man. It's just so bad.
Yeah, but there's something I really liked about this book, and I want to share it. So one of the techniques in this book, there are 2 things in this book that I haven't heard before. One of them is the Eisenhower method, and the other one is the 5-4-3-2-1. Eisenhower method basically says there are 4 types of issues you should deal with: urgent, not urgent, and important, not important, and like the 4 combinations.
Yeah.
Basically, it says if it's important and urgent, you should do it immediately. If it's important but not urgent, you should blah blah blah. Clearly, if you are the commander of the Allied forces in Europe during Second World War or a president of the America, you can dismiss non-urgent and non-important matters and just throw them to trash, and you probably should. But most people aren't. But more importantly, 5-4-3-2-1 method, I really love it. It's my favorite thing. I tried it, it really works. What it basically does is you need to look at 5 things around you. Hear 4 sounds, I think, right? 3 things you are feeling, like touch feeling, like your dress, floor, something like that. 2 things you smell, and 1 thing you taste. You focus on these things, and then your anxiety just flies away. It's a wonderful technique. I tried it, like I said. It phases you out so much from wherever you are. You immediately forget about everything that's happening that is annoying you. Like if you're on a table and one of your friends is saying annoying racist stuff, instead of saying you're an annoying racist person at their face and starting an argument, you can just focus on how the table feels on your hands and like how you are looking at the next table. There's a person you are seeing. Like if you do this, it really helps, I think.
Can I tell you something?
Yes.
The couple of nights ago, I was feeling overwhelmed, and I tried to use ChatGPT's new voice command conversation thing as a therapist. Like, I just gave it a try to distract myself. And the first thing, my ChatGPT is a guy with a sexy voice. And the first thing he said with a sassy voice, let's look at the things. Let's try this method. What do you see right now in the room? Like, it was kind of like guided meditation almost, but what you described. And again, like, I think it's a little bit of like, this book feels in that realm, right? Like, it's a chat GPT.
No, that's worse. I can say that.
Yeah.
No.
I spent the last hour tearing into this book, but I have to say that is worse than this book. Do not do that.
Also, the book is very conveniently written. At the end of each chapter, there's a summary of that chapter, and at the end of the book, there's a summary of the chapters.
I
So, yeah.
love if you love summaries, this is the book for you.
Oh yes, so many summaries. Like great in that sense. So yeah, that's Stop Overthinking It by, what was the guy's name?
Nick Trenton.
Nick Trenton.
Nick Trenton. The actual title is even longer for extra humor.
Stop overthinking. 23 techniques to reveal stress. Stop negative
Relief.
spirals. Declutter your mind and focus on the present.
Already a good sign that he isn't overthinking with this title. And yeah, like that's a CEO equivalent of a chair with 3 lines of name. Like it hits all the boxes with that title. Yeah, so we read this book, and now because we are equipped with the 23 techniques, we are no longer overthinking, and we can actually go back to figuring out how to do an episode.
Oh.
Yeah.
Let's start that
This
then.
was that was about.
So yeah, follow us on our social media. And I don't know. It's in the description. Like there's I don't. We got Instagram. We have Twitter. We have, what do we have? What else do we have?
YouTube.
Reddit. We don't have Reddit. We have Reddit.
Reddit. We are now on YouTube, and we are currently publishing our episodes, airing on our episodes on the day of the release.
Oh yeah.
So you can also find us on
We have
YouTube now.
Mhm.
And comment us. Please like us. What the other YouTubers do.
Bell.
Like there are some subscription, so please ring the bell.
Oh yeah.
Ring button down there, and maybe we should put some katıl button.
Join. Yeah.
Join
We will come up with like things. If for like $1 you can be a Binali, for $3 you can be Can Deniz, and so on. Like but not yet though, not yet. We are just on YouTube. Like this is the first episode that's gonna be released at YouTube and other streaming services at the same time. But we have uploaded our previous episodes as well. And we had a little bit of a break, the release break for our streaming, because we were dealing with those things, and also because like summer.
We were overthinking so much.
Yeah.
Oh yes. But we are hoping we will be back with our 2-week schedule. And yeah, that's been all. Thank you for listening.
Bye.
This has been our first book review episode.